Before Born Again, Matt Murdock was known as the indomitable Daredevil, a blind lawyer fighting for justice in the unforgiving streets of Hell's Kitchen. Yet even this seemingly invincible hero was not immune to the harsh realities of the 1980s, a decade defined by ruthless capitalism, urban decay, and moral ambiguity. In the mid-80s, Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli reimagined Daredevil in a way that laid bare his vulnerabilities. This era of comics paralleled the cultural shifts of the time, a world where traditional loyalties were crumbling and survival often meant making impossible choices. It's in this charged atmosphere that Born Again would forever alter Matt's life. While Kingpin's discovery of Daredevil's secret identity is the spark that ignites his downfall, a less discussed yet pivotal moment is the role played by Karen Page, once a trusted friend, lover, and confidant to Matt. Karen's own descent during this turbulent period became a tragic mirror of the era's brutal reality. In the 1980s, New York was a city in crisis. The Reagan era heralded a time of fierce individualism and the erosion of the collective safety net. Economic hardship, rising crime, and a pervasive sense of disillusionment permeated every corner of Hell's Kitchen. For Karen Page, who had once been an idealistic reporter and loyal friend, these harsh realities took their toll. Over time, Karen Page became increasingly isolated by personal demons, battling addiction, financial instability, and the crushing pressures of a society that prized self-preservation over loyalty. In a world where betrayal often became a currency for survival, Karen found herself at a crossroads. Desperate and disillusioned, she made the fateful decision to divulge critical information about Matt's double life. Her betrayal wasn't born out of malice, but rather from a deep-seated need to escape the relentless pressures of her own existence. In a period where corporate greed and relentless pursuit of personal gain dominated, Karen's decision can be seen as tragic. It's a consequence of society that left her with few options. By revealing Matt's secret identity to Kingpin, she inadvertently handed Fisk the ultimate weapon, a means to systematically destroy everything that gave Matt his strength. This act of betrayal became the tipping point. It transformed Kingpin's suspicions into a full-blown vendetta, setting in motion a chain reaction that would strip Matt of his home, his career, and ultimately his very sense of self. Karen's choice, influenced by the corrosive culture of the 80s, served as a catalyst for one of the darkest periods in Daredevil's history. Kingpin's investigation is methodical. For years, he had harbored suspicions about the man behind the mask. With Karen's betrayal as confirmation, Fisk leverages his vast network of informants and corrupt officials to gather every scrap of evidence needed to unmask Matt. And once the secret is out, it sets off a cascade of events that leaves Murdock's world in ruin. The revelation shatters every semblance of normalcy for Matt. His law practice crumbles, his financial stability evaporates, and the relationships he once cherished disintegrate under the weight of betrayal. This isn't just an attack on Daredevil's persona. It's a systemic deconstruction of the man behind the mask. After the relentless barrage that shatters every facet of his life, Matt Murdock is left in ruins, both physically and spiritually. Yet Born Again is not merely a story of loss. It's, at its heart, a story of rebirth. In the aftermath of betrayal and devastation, we witness the painstaking process by which Daredevil rebuilds himself, not as the man he once was, but as a hero forged anew by fire. Unlike a miraculous return, Matt's recovery is slow, deliberate, and laden with pain. The comics depict him training in isolation, pushing his body to the limits while wrestling with the emotional demons unleashed by his betrayal. Every bruise and every scar becomes a badge of honor, a testament of his will to fight back. In these pages, we see Murdock's inner journey as vividly as his physical one. Alone in the darkness, he confronts memories of loss and deep-seated guilt that had haunted him since Karen's faithful betrayal. Rather than denying his past, he examines it head-on, turning every failure into a lesson and every wound into a source of strength. His internal monologue, rendered in stark, haunting imagery, reveals a man determined to reclaim not only his identity as Daredevil, but also his dignity as Matt Murdock. One of the most powerful symbols of his rebirth is the evolution of his iconic suit. As he rediscovers himself, the costume transforms. It's a darker, richer red, replacing the old uniform destroyed in Kingpin's fire. It's more than a change in color, though. It represents the weight of his past and the intensity of his renewed purpose. Donning the suit becomes a ritualistic act, a reclaiming of his identity as the protector of Hell's Kitchen. Every step of his rebirth is marked by small victories, a decisive stance in a training session, a fleeting moment of clarity amidst despair, or even the subtle, almost imperceptible smile that hints at a rekindled hope. These panels capture the essence of transformation, that heroism isn't defined by the absence of pain, but by the courage to rise again after every fall. In the end, this arc transforms Daredevil. He is no longer the man broken by Kingpin's ruthless campaign or by Karen's heartbreaking betrayal. Instead, he emerges as a symbol of resilience, a man remade by his suffering, ready to face a corrupt world with a renewed sense of purpose. Frank Miller's Born Again teaches us that even in the darkest moments, there is a spark that can ignite a new beginning, a message as powerful today as it was in the 1980s. Decades later, the impact of Born Again and Karen's tragic betrayal remains a watershed moment in comic book history. This storyline not only redefined Daredevil as a character, but also set a new standard for how personal downfall and redemptions are portrayed in superhero narratives. It challenges us to consider the consequences of betrayal and the cost of survival in a world that during the 1980s often rewarded self-interest over loyalty. The cultural echoes of that era, the disillusionment, the greed, the collapse of traditional support systems, are all palpable in Karen's desperate choices and Matt's ensuing devastation. Frank Miller's Born Again is a masterclass in character deconstruction and rebirth. It's a story of how even the most trusted relationships can fracture under the pressures of a brutal, unforgiving era, and how betrayal can serve as the catalyst for a complete transformative downfall. Yet from the ruins, a hero is reborn, stronger and more determined than ever. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this dive into one of Daredevil's most influential stories, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more comic book lore and analysis. Remember, sometimes the darkest betrayals lead to the brightest rebirths.